Some days you wake up and the world feels heavy in a way you can't quite explain. You brew your coffee, move through the motions, but something inside you is just tugging on your sleeve like a child needing attention. And when someone asks, "How are you?" you give the answer we were all trained to give. "I'm fine." Fine. That word has covered everything from heartbreak to rage to bone-level exhaustion. Fine is the emotional duct tape of our generation. Good for a quick patch, but it will never hold the weight of the truth. So here's the thing nobody ever taught us growing up. Your feelings are not inconveniences. They are not weaknesses. They are not storms to hide from. They are information, signals, seeds, waiting for the right name so they can grow into something that you can understand. Hello, all you beautiful human beings. This is Human Beings Radio, a garden for body, mind, and spirit. I'm Mira Crowe. Let's grow. Naming your emotions isn't dramatic. It's grounding. It's the moment the pantry light flicks on and you finally see what's on the shelf. You know that feeling when you've been rummaging around in the dark, grabbing things by shape and knocking half the jars over in the process, hoping the thing you picked up isn't the cayenne. Naming is the opposite of chaos. It's that slow exhale when you finally say, "Oh, this tightness is anxiety," or "this heaviness is grief." You might see a sharp edge and realize, "Oh, this is resentment," or "this ache, this one is loneliness." And the minute you name it, something inside you lets the tension out of its clenched fist. Your nervous system isn't built to live in mystery. It's built to respond to truth. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment asking, "What's happening? Are we safe? Do we need to run, freeze, fight, breathe, ask for help, sit down, stand up?" When you have a feeling and you name it, you give your body the information it needs to stand down. So, before we go any further, let's take a breath, just a small one, and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Not what you should feel, and not what you think you're allowed to feel. Not what you've been taught to hide so that you're keeping peace with other people. Just what's here. Because what's here is the only thing you can tend. It's the only honest place to start. And when you name what's here, you stop fighting your own heart and you start tending it. And tending it is the beginning of healing it. Now, I didn't grow up with that kind of tending. In my childhood, feelings were not something you labeled. If you were upset, you were fine. If you cried, someone said, "Toughen up," and you said, "I'm fine." If you were angry, you were being dramatic, and you're like, No, I'm fine." And if you had the nerve to show big emotions in public, the grown-ups acted like you were pouring shame all over the family name. Our family pantry didn't have many emotional labels at all. It just had one big jar that said, "Get over it." And then next to that was the one that was like, "Don't talk about that." And then I guess one named, well, "We don't do feelings in this house." So here's the trouble. When everything is labeled fine, you lose the recipe for being human. You don't know what the ingredients are. Later on, when life serves you real grief or heartbreak or stress so thick you can barely breathe through it, you won't have the vocabulary to tell the difference. You can't tell what's burning, what's boiling, what's just simmering. You just shut the pantry door and pray that it doesn't fall off the hinges. I remember being in my 20s. And I was in therapy for the very first time after I'd started recovery. And my knees were bouncing, and I was twisting my hands, and I was feeling exposed and lost. And I said, I don't know what I feel. It just feels like too much. And my therapist, bless her, did not flinch. She just handed me a piece of paper with 50 different emotion words on it. 50. Not 5. Not sad, mad, fine, tired, and hungry. 50. And it was like I was discovering all the spices you'd been missing. Finding out that cinnamon existed after eating oatmeal bland your whole life. There was a difference between frustrated and furious. A difference between lonely and abandoned, between overwhelmed and afraid. Each word gave me a measurement, a dose, a direction. Instead of dumping the entire mystery jar into the pot, I could finally tell the difference between a pinch of shame and a full tablespoon of grief. Naming feelings, it doesn't make them stronger, it makes them clearer. In neuroscience, this is called affect labeling, and it's wild how simple it is. You see, the fMRI scans, you can see, literally see, that when a person says, I feel angry, the amygdala, that little alarm bell in the brain that we've talked about, it stops screaming quite so loudly. When you put that name on it, it quietens down. And the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part, the adult in the room, lights up. So in plain language, when you name it, you tame it. Not by suppressing it, but by understanding it. It's like sticking a label on the hot sauce so you don't keep mistaking it for syrup. I used to think emotions were inconvenient, that they were messy, something that got in the way of the real work of surviving. But somewhere along the way I realized emotions aren't the problem, they're the messengers. Anger means a boundary's been crossed. Sadness means that something mattered to you. Fear means danger might be present or growth might be calling your name. Joy says, stop and pay attention. This is what being alive feels like. They're not flaws in the system. They are the system. But my emotional pantry? Oh, honey, my jars were mixed up like a thrift store shelf. Anger got used when I was really scared, or guilt got poured into every dish, whether it belonged there or not. And by the time I reached burnout, my whole inner kitchen looked like one big sticky mess labeled, I don't know. I remember a night when everything spilled out of me. One of my kids pushed a button I didn't even know I had. And instead of handling it with calm, I snapped. Afterward, I sat in the dark kitchen with my head in my hands, whispering with a few tears, why do I keep doing this? And then it hit me. I had never learned to say the words, I feel overwhelmed. That was the truth, but I didn't have those labels. All I knew how to express was, I'm mad. A language gap of 6 little words was costing me peace. 6 words that could have saved a night, a fight, a heart, some tears. That's the power of words. They shape the map inside you. When your vocabulary expands, the insula, that part of the brain that tracks your internal state, it starts to activate with more nuance. You sharpen the picture, increase the resolution. It's like upgrading from a drawer labeled miscellaneous to a row of beautifully labeled jars you can finally make sense of. Now, sometimes I do still catch myself defaulting to, I'm fine. Old habits are sticky like sugar on the counter. But now I catch it, and I pause and I ask, fine? Or maybe a little anxious, or maybe I'm disappointed. Maybe I'm just tired and tender. Each tiny label brings me closer to the truth. And truth, even when it stings, is always gentler than confusion. Confusion makes you fight shadows. Truth hands you a light. Now, it's funny, we label everything else in life. Tupperware and essential oils and the leftovers from Thanksgiving down to the exact date so nobody accidentally dies. But ask most people how they feel, and you get that universal shrug. I don't know. Fine, I guess. We have a society full of unlabeled jars just walking around pretending to be whole pantries. That's why emotional literacy isn't therapy speak. It isn't fluff. It's liberation. When you can say, I'm irritated, not enraged, you can choose the right response. When you can say, I'm grieving, you'll stop calling yourself lazy. When you can say, I'm lonely, you will stop punishing yourself for wanting connection. The right label is the right key. I taught this to my younger son once. He came in from school, slammed his backpack, and muttered, I hate everyone. I took a beat, and then I asked him, Honey, are you feeling hate or are you feeling hurt? He paused and frowned and then whispered, hurt. That one word shifted the whole trajectory of our evening. Instead of conflict, we made some cocoa. Instead of spiraling apart, we sat together. And I helped him work through that hurt. And that's the power of naming it. It turns walls into doors. So, the next time you hear yourself say, I'm fine, ask yourself what flavor of fine is it? Sweet, salty, bitter, burnt, underseasoned? Is it really fine, or is it just grief wearing mascara? Because once you know what's in that jar, you know what to do with it. Pour it out, stir it in, put it back, or maybe just finally throw that old damn thing away. Emotional fluency isn't perfection, it's honesty. It's learning to read your own labels, clean your jars, and keep the light on so nothing festers unseen in the dark. Hey y'all, take a breath with me. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice whatever's alive in you right now. That's your inner garden asking to be tended. If you want more episodes, more tools, more conversations about being human in a world that doesn't always make space for it, you can follow us at Human Beans Radio pretty much everywhere you scroll. You can join the Bean Patch community on Facebook, and you can explore all our resources at humanbeansradio.com. When I finally started studying psychology, what amazed me most wasn't how complicated the brain is. It was how kind it tries to be. That was a real revelation. All those years I thought my brain was sabotaging me. I thought I was overreacting or broken or dramatic, but no. My brain wasn't out to hurt me. It was trying to protect me with the tools it had. Even the outdated ones, even the clunky ones, even the ones inherited from people who didn't believe in feelings at all. Your brain loves you enough to sound the alarm. It just panics when it doesn't know why the alarm is going off. Think of it like this. You're standing in your kitchen and you smell smoke, but you can't tell where it's coming from. Is it just a candle burning low? Is it a skillet you forgot? Is the toaster betraying you again? Or is the whole house on fire? Until you name the source, until you can say this is coming from here, your whole system stays on high alert. The heart pounds, the muscles tense, the breath gets shallow, and that ancient survival system starts flipping every switch it can reach. That's exactly what happens when we feel something strong but don't know what to call it. Your brain keeps scanning and spinning and sounding alarms. It's trying to save you, but it doesn't have the right file folder to put the feeling in, so it throws everything into emergency just to be safe. But the moment you name the feeling, the smoke detector finally quiets down. You're not fixing the fire. You're just giving your brain the information it needed to stop screaming. That's affect labeling, and scientists adore this one because the scans are so clear. When they put people in those machines and show them the images that trigger strong emotions and then ask them to name the feeling, like clockwork, the amygdala chills out and the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part, just lights up like somebody turned on the porch light. Naming that feeling is like taking a deep breath for your brain. You still feel the feeling, it's still real, but you're no longer drowning in it. You're floating with a life jacket on. So when you say, I'm anxious, you're not being dramatic. You're giving your brain coordinates. Here we are, this is the feeling, this is where we are on the map. When you say, I'm grieving, you're building a bridge between biology and compassion. You're saying this hurts and I see why. Naming doesn't mean controlling. It means orienting. And Lord knows, I've had days where I needed a map. I once went through a whole week convinced I was furious at the world. Every little thing, the traffic, the dishes, the way the dog looked at me, set me off like a firecracker with a faulty fuse. And then one night I finally sat down and breathed deep and said it out loud. I'm scared. Just scared. Money, health, and my future, my kids growing up faster than seems humanly fair. I was just scared. And the minute I named it, that anger drained out of me like water from a cracked bucket. Fear had been wearing a bright red wig and stomping around in anger's shoes, pretending to be something it wasn't. That's emotional granularity, being able to tell the difference between the reds. Is it crimson rage or just the soft pink of irritation? Is it maroon grief or just the embarrassed blush of being misunderstood? Is it danger red or nostalgia red or I need space red? People who build that vocabulary actually regulate stress better. Their brains don't throw a Category 5 storm at every drizzle. They can tell the difference between a sprinkle and a monsoon. And that difference changes everything. How you speak to yourself, how you speak to your family, how you move through the world. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Our language shapes what we're even capable of feeling. Cultures with rich emotional vocabularies give their people more tools for self-regulation. Some indigenous languages have words for grief that also mean love, lineage, and continuity, not just loss. In Japanese, there's natsukashi, the gentle, warm sadness of remembering something beautiful that's gone. You can't translate it neatly into English because we flatten those subtleties into sad, a word we use for everything from losing your keys to losing a parent. When our language is flat, our emotional experience becomes flat, not because we feel less, but because we can't distinguish what we're feeling. And when you can't distinguish, the feelings just pile up, unnamed, unprocessed, unhealed. That's why therapy, journaling, prayer, long drives with the windows down, even talking to a friend who actually listens, all of those feel like turning on a pantry light because every sentence labels another jar. You might not reorganize the whole pantry that day, but at least you stop mistaking salt for sugar. I had a friend once tell me she felt numb, flat, empty, nothing. But as we talked, She realized numbness was not the absence of emotion. It was too many emotions at once. Grief, exhaustion, anger, guilt, they all crowded into a single unlabeled jar. When she started naming those ingredients, those tears finally came. And then relief. The feelings didn't disappear, but they finally had somewhere to go. That's why naming emotions isn't self-indulgent. It's self-stewardship. When you say, "This is sadness," your body relaxes because now it knows what it's dealing with. When you say, "This is fear," your shoulders drop because now the danger has a shape. The fog stops being an enemy you have to fight and becomes a landscape you can walk through with a lantern. I used to think emotional language was weakness, and now I see it as fluency in being alive. It's the difference between knowing you're drowning and knowing which way is up. Words are oxygen, and when you breathe in that kind of honesty, your whole nervous system exhales with you. And here's the beautiful thing. The moment you name a feeling, it stops being the whole room and just becomes one guest, one visitor you can sit with, feed, listen to, and then gently usher out when it's time. Emotional literacy doesn't give you control. It gives you companionship within your own inner life. So, I want to invite you, lovingly, gently, to flip on the pantry light inside yourself. Don't judge what's on the shelves. Just notice the jars. Notice what's full, what's empty, what's expired, what's mislabeled, what's still good. Maybe tonight you peel off a label that was never yours to carry. Maybe you write a new one that finally tells the truth. And that truth is language. And that language is the beginning of peace. Not perfection, just presence and understanding. It's time for a bean break, where we plant a seed, water it, and gently watch it grow. Today's seed is truth. So, imagine yourself back in front of that pantry shelf we talked about earlier. You flip on the light. Not harsh, not judgmental, just a simple warm glow. And suddenly all the jars come into view. Some contain sweet, some are sour. Some are half full from years of rationing, and some are dusty with labels that were slapped on before you even had a say in who you were allowed to be. Now, choose one jar, just one. There's no need to reorganize the whole shelf. You're not doing spring cleaning. We're just doing noticing. We're doing naming. You're going to pick it up. Feel the weight of it. Feel the temperature. Is it cool, warm? And softly, like you're greeting a neighbor on a front porch, say the name of what's inside. Hello, sadness. Hello, fear. Hello, hope. Hello, anger. Hello, longing. Hello, joy. I almost didn't recognize you. That naming, that soft, steady acknowledgement, that is the watering. You don't have to open that jar. You don't have to pour anything out. You don't have to fix or confront or solve or scrub anything clean. Just let that feeling know that you see it. That visibility is nourishment enough. And here's the growth. Every time you name a feeling and acknowledge it, even the tiny ones, even the stubborn ones, you plant honesty in your own soul. And honesty, in its simplest form, is an act of care. It's you saying, I'm here, I'm listening. I won't abandon myself just because the feeling is uncomfortable. Honesty grows. It grows into peace. And peace, like any honest garden, doesn't arrive overnight. It shows up in the small ways first. The loosened jaw, the deeper breath, the softer inner voice, the moment of clarity that helps you choose gentleness over panic. And like any garden worth tending, peace thrives with consistent, loving attention, not perfection, just presence. So today, plant the seed of truth, water it with language, and let the growth be compassion, the kind that begins within and ripples outward. If something in this episode lit a little lantern inside of you, carry that with you into your day. And if you want more moments like this, reflective, hopeful, grounded, just come find me at Human Beings Radio on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, everything lives at humanbeingsradio.com, including our episodes, tools, and the shop. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/humanbeingsradio. And truly, thank y'all. Every bit helps keep this light shining. It's time now for my favorite segment, Everything I Need to Know I Learned from PBS. Today I'm referencing a show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And the episode is, What Do You Do with the Mad That You Feel? This aired in 1975. And I tell you for real that Mr. Rogers raised me. Everything I need to know I did learn from that man. A soft-spoken, wonderful, friendly man in a zip-up cardigan who tied his sneakers like he was preparing his whole soul just to be present with you. When I think about naming emotions, I do think about Mr. Rogers sitting on that little bench, leaning forward with that soft, sturdy presence and asking the children of the world and all the adults pretending not to listen, what do you do with the mad that you feel? He didn't say don't feel mad, and he didn't say be good or control yourself or stop crying. He didn't rush to fix it or minimize it or distract from it. He just asked, softly, with curiosity, as if anger were a guest at the table and not a burglar breaking into the house. It was the first time many of us had ever seen a grown-up treat anger like a feeling instead of a failure. As a kid, a little bitty thing, that question did kind of stop me in my tracks. I didn't know what I did with my mad. Mad wasn't something that you talked about where I grew up. Mad was something you got punished for or shamed for or silenced for. Mad meant you were acting out. Mad meant you were being too much. But Fred Rogers, he was the first adult who looked into the camera and said, with his eyes as much as his words, it's okay to feel that way. That alone was revolutionary. He gave permission to name a feeling before deciding what to do with it. He normalized it. He destigmatized it. Decades before we ever used words like emotional regulation or self-awareness. When I've rewatched that episode as an adult or a mother, as someone who's weathered more storms than I can count, or as someone who honestly sneaks into some archives every now and then and just takes some comfort, I hear something even deeper. He wasn't just teaching kids about anger. He was modeling emotional literacy long before psychology put the phrase for it out here where all of us had access. He was quietly teaching, you can be mad and still be safe. You can feel big things and still be good. You can name the storm, and that helps you get through it. He was showing children that emotions aren't enemies, they're messengers. And let me tell you, I think about that. When my own temper starts to boil, when the sink overflows and the car in front of me forgets that turn signals even exist, when a day that was already too heavy decides to stack one more thing on top. Sometimes I whisper, half to myself and I think half to Fred, what do I do with this mad that I feel? And usually, just the asking is enough to shift my nervous system. And I'll take a walk, or wash a dish, or breathe until my heartbeat remembers it's not in a sprint. And I realize that's exactly what he was trying to teach, that feelings can move through the body instead of exploding out of it. Fred made emotional honesty look simple, but it was sacred work. He gave us language before we even knew we needed it. He taught us that naming an emotion doesn't make it bigger. It makes it understandable. It gives boundaries, shape, edges. And all these years later, his voice still echoes. What matters most is that we can talk about it. Because talking about it, naming it, is how we turn a feeling from chaos into connection, from overwhelm into insight, from panic to presence. He wasn't just talking to children then. He was talking to the adults he hoped we would become. And I think we all still need that guidance. We've talked now a lot about feelings in the abstract, but where's the big battleground, the real battleground? It's not in those big life events, not funerals or breakups, not in the existential crises where you're sitting in the shower floor wondering what the hell being human even means. It's the everyday stuff, the tiny moments, the 1,000 paper cuts of living. It's the part of the day where your nervous system has exactly 1 teaspoon of room left, and somehow life looks you dead in the eye and tries to pour a whole gallon into that teaspoon anyway. Take traffic, for example. If someone cuts you off, you might think, well, I'm mad. End of story. But if you slow down just one breath, literally one, you can usually hear the truth underneath. You could have been startled or scared, or maybe you felt disrespected or invisible. Maybe you felt out of control. Maybe you were already stretched thin before you even left the driveway, and this was the straw that snapped your emotional suspension system. Mad is the umbrella. Under it are 12 different flavors of weather. And when you can't tell the difference between a drizzle and a thunderstorm, you respond differently. A drizzle calls for patience. A drizzle says, okay, that was annoying, but we're fine now. A thunderstorm says, honey, pull over and breathe before you start trying to fix things that aren't broken. But what if you treated everything like a tornado? If every inconvenience feels like a full-scale evacuation? Your body lives in survival mode then, even when you're just trying to merge onto the interstate like a respectable adult. And speaking of tornadoes, sometimes what looks like anger is really tired, wearing anger's jacket because tired wasn't sure it had the right to speak. It's the same thing with relationships. You know this one. Somebody asks if you're upset and you blurt, no, I'm fine. With that tone that means you are absolutely 100% without question not fine. But here's the thing. Fine is never actually fine. We know fine is code for I don't know what I feel yet, Or I don't feel safe enough to say what I feel. Or maybe I don't have the language to explain this without crying, yelling, or getting overwhelmed. Fine is that emotional equivalent of a junk drawer. Everything gets thrown in there because it doesn't have a home anywhere else. And when that junk drawer gets full, it gets messy. And then it gets so cluttered that you don't want to open it at all, which is exactly how we start ghosting our own emotional lives. Let me give you a real example from my own life, because Lord knows I've lived this one. There have been so many times I swore I was angry with someone, when really, I was disappointed, or I was ignored, or lonely, or scared that something I cared about was slipping away. But I didn't know how to say those things. They're more vulnerable. Those words felt too naked, too exposed, too, what if they don't take care with this? So anger stepped in like, oh, scoot over. I'll handle this. I've got the volume for this conversation. Anger becomes the spokesperson when the quieter true feelings haven't learned to speak up or haven't ever been allowed to. But here's the thing about that emotional vocabulary. You don't need to be a poet. You don't need to turn your feelings into a sonnet. You don't need to be dramatic or delicate or even eloquent. You just need to get specific enough that your brain knows what to do with the information. Because these distinctions matter. Frustrated is different from furious. Worried is different from terrified. Lonely is different from abandoned. Overstimulated is different from mad at everyone. Disappointed, it's different from betrayed. And drained is way different from depressed. And triggered is different from unsafe. Specificity is power. Specificity is compassion. And specificity is nervous system regulation. Your fight or flight system reacts differently depending on the label. If you say, I'm terrified, when you're actually just overstimulated, your biology gears up for a battle that isn't happening. If you say, I'm angry, when really you're hurt, you end up fighting instead of healing. But every time you practice naming the layers underneath, your brain starts handing you better and better labels. It's like having those little owl signs in the grocery store. Oh, this emotion lives in aisle 7 next to the shame and the caffeine. Or this one goes in aisle 3 with the unmet needs and the tired mom feelings. Or, oh yes, this is the did too much today flavor of cranky. That's in the self-care aisle, not the emergency aisle. When you know where an emotion lives, you stop wandering around reacting to everything you bump into. You pick up the right jar, you read the label, and finally, you know what recipe your nervous system is trying to make. That last segment, it's led me to remember that there's a moment that still kind of makes me chuckle. It was so painfully and beautifully human. I was in Kroger one afternoon and doing what I thought was going to be the easiest errand of my entire week, picking up a few things, milk, bread, bananas, nothing emotional or dramatic, just groceries. But the second those automatic doors whooshed open, I knew I was in trouble. The place was packed. It wasn't busy. It wasn't, oh look, a few carts packed. It was carts everywhere. They were stacked like cordwood. A toddler crying as if his soul had been personally wronged by the universe. Somebody's phone is blaring a ringtone that sounded like a malfunctioning robot trying to beatbox. There was a couple arguing in front of the deli meat. And I promise you, it was like I was on season 4 of a reality show that nobody asked for. It was sensory chaos. The kind where you feel the lights buzzing above you like even the electricity is judging your life choices. That feeling, that hot, tight, sharp feeling, started rising in my chest. My jaw clenched, my shoulders tried to become earrings, and that old familiar voice in my head started whispering, "Oh great, here we go. You're getting mad again." Mad. That was the label I had. That was what was in my toolkit that day. That's like having the emotional equivalent of calling every canine dog, whether it's a chihuahua or a wolf. Oh, Lord. But somewhere between the pasta aisle and the produce section, I did something I never used to do. I just stopped. Right there, hand on the cart, eyes on the floor like I was reading a secret message from the linoleum. I took one slow breath, not a dramatic yoga breath, not a I'm trying to look calm for the security cameras breath. Just a small, real, imperfect breath, and I asked myself a question and cracked it open. Are you mad or are you overwhelmed? And I swear to you, the answer came back like a quiet friend sitting right next to me in the dark. No, I'm overstimulated. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even irritable. I was not a terrible person standing there in Kroger. I was not someone who can't handle things. I was just overstimulated. The store was too loud, the lights were too bright, people were too close, and the carts were too slow. The music was too tinny and anachronistic. And I hadn't eaten since breakfast, which meant my nervous system was running on fumes and stubbornness. My senses were overloaded, and my bandwidth was fried. And I didn't need shame. All I needed was space. The moment I named that feeling correctly, the pressure inside me dropped. Not all the way. It's not a magical fairy tale. I still wanted to leave that Kroger like it was a horror movie built entirely out of fluorescent lights, but something shifted. The shame dissolved. The story changed. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't acting ridiculous. I wasn't in a bad mood or being too sensitive. I was a human being having a normal nervous system response to an overwhelming environment. That's it. Naming that emotion didn't fix the chaos around me. People were still fighting about ham. The toddler was still devastated, and somebody please get that baby a cookie. And the robot ringtone guy was still out there doing whatever spiritual crime he was doing. But naming the emotion changed me. It changed me. It gave me permission to be gentle with myself, to soften, to take the pressure off, to stop talking to myself like a drill sergeant, and start talking to myself like someone worth protecting. I grabbed the bananas, checked out, walked to my car, and I went home without spiraling into self-loathing about how I shouldn't get so upset over nothing. Because guess what? It wasn't nothing. My nervous system was giving me information. It was telling me it needed help, space, quiet, grounding. And sometimes truly the right name, it's all the first aid you need. If today's episode feels like a little moment of peace or clarity or permission, I'd love for you to come sit with us again. Follow us at Human Beings Radio on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, or just come by humanbeangsradio.com for episodes, tools, and the Bean Patch community. Wherever you find me, know this. You're welcome here. You're part of the Bean Patch now. Thanks so much for stopping by. Healing is easier when we don't have to do it alone. All right, let's get practical, because naming emotions shouldn't feel like decoding ancient hieroglyphs or going on a 6-day silent retreat in the mountains. And you don't need a psychology degree, and you don't need incense, and you don't need a special journal or a mood ring or a moon phase calendar. You just need a little clarity, a little honesty, and a little space to listen to yourself without judgment. So here's some simple tools you can start using today in real time, whether you're at home or in traffic or at the grocery store or hiding in the bathroom for 5 minutes apiece like a reasonable person. And here we go. First tool is called the name plus because method. And literally, it's just you say out loud if you can, if not, say it in your head. I feel X because X. And this tiny sentence is going to force your brain to pause and focus and choose a label instead of spiraling. An example could be, I feel anxious because I haven't had a minute to myself today. I feel sad because that reminded me I missed someone. I feel irritated because I'm overwhelmed, not because someone did something wrong. I feel embarrassed because I care what they think of me. And here's the kicker. If your brain can't finish the sentence, if it gets stuck or confused or keeps recycling the same vague word, it means you need a different label. The moment of, wait, that's not it. That moment is gold. It means your brain is sorting through the jars and trying to hand you the right one. Basically, emotional GPS doing recalculating until you land on the right address. So, that's that first method, name plus because. I feel blank because blank. Now the second one is the 5 flavors of feeling. Think of your emotions like tasting notes. You don't have to be exact. You don't have to nail the perfect emotional word on the first try. You just need to get in the neighborhood. The 5 basic flavors are sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. And here's the thing. Sweet emotions, you're talking the soft ones, like joy, gratitude, relief, comfort. The, oh, that felt good. My nervous system finally unclenched. The someone sees me kind of feelings. Those are sweet. The salty ones are like irritation, defensiveness, annoyance. This is the just something rubbed me the wrong way zone. It's not devastation, it's just friction. Sour usually is fear, uncertainty, or discomfort. Sour is the I don't like this flavor. The hesitation or that uneasy gut feeling. I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm alert. Bitter, well, that can come in resentment, grief, jealousy, regret. They're heavy and deep and old. They're the ones that come with history and meaning and the ones that linger. And umami, that's just that weird off feeling that you can't name. The emotional version of, what is this? Why does everything feel weird? This is overstimulation, burnout, or something's not right energy. Once you choose a flavor, it helps your brain narrow it down. So if you're having trouble, don't name the emotion, name the flavor, and that'll help you get there. It gets easier when you stop trying to be perfect and just start trying to be close. Now, this third one is my absolute favorite. It's called the 90-second wave rule. And I want to tell you that it was discovered by neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who is one of my personal, just absolute heroes. I think she's a miracle in a lab coat. So she has discovered, miraculously, an emotional wave only actually lasts about 90 seconds if you don't feed it with thoughts. That means if you pause and name the emotion and don't pile stories on it, like, they always do this, or I can't handle this, or I'm such a mess, or why am I like this? If you don't allow any of that, if you just name the emotion and let it sit, the emotion peaks and then begins to fade within about a minute and a half. When you name these feelings, you buy yourself that 90 seconds. You interrupt that panic loop, and you stop the runaway train before it barrels into the same old wall. Naming the emotion isn't just emotional intelligence. It's a biological reset button. It's like surfing. If you ride the wave, it carries you. But if you fight the wave, it flips you. Well, we've got time. I'm going to pop one more bonus tool in here, and that is your body knows before your brain does. When you're in doubt about what you're feeling, ask your body. It labels the jar before your conscious mind even walks into the kitchen. There are common clues that you can lean on. If you have a really tight throat, it could be sadness, shame, or suppressed truth. A clenched jaw can mean anger or fear or trying to hold it together. If your limbs are really heavy, that could be depression, grief, or emotional exhaustion. If your chest is kind of like buzzing, that's anxiety or adrenaline spike. And if you have an ache behind your eyes, that's emotional fatigue or unexpressed feelings. So, what I'm getting at here is that your body whispers the emotion to you long before your brain translates it into a word. If you listen, the body will tell you the truth you're looking for. And if you name it, that mind can finally understand it. And then when they both work together, the nervous system can calm down enough to choose the next right step. And here we are in Blue Book bindings, where I lean on the Blue Book a lot. Even though it was written for people fighting addiction, I've always believed that the steps in the Blue Book are really a roadmap for being human. Today I'm referencing the text of Step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. When I first heard that line, it felt heavy. It sounded like standing trial for your own heart, like dragging everything you've ever done wrong into the light and waiting for judgment to fall. It felt harsh, punitive, like an emotional audit nobody asked for. But over time, through my own healing and through walking alongside people I love, I realized that Step 4 isn't punishment. It's honesty. And honesty, when it's handled with gentleness instead of shame, becomes healing. Naming what you feel is a part of moral inventory. It's not a confession booth or a scolding ledger. It's not a courtroom where you're the prosecutor, the defendant, and the jury all at once. It's much simpler and far more sacred than that. It's a flashlight and a notebook. You open the pantry, the one inside you, and flip on the light and take stock. What's here? What's missing? What's spoiled? What's still good? Not in a let me beat myself up way. It's more in a let me tell the truth about what's actually alive in me way. That's what Step 4 really means to me now. I'm not judging the jars. I'm just trying to find out what's in them. For years, I did mistake inventory for shame. I thought that being searching and fearless meant being brutal with myself. I drug out every old mistake like it was going on a bonfire of self-loathing. But fearless doesn't mean cruel. Fearless means willing to look, willing to face what's real without running, without lying, without dramatizing. Fearless just means not abandoning yourself halfway through the process. Some days, the bravest thing you can do is name a feeling out loud and not flinch, not collapse, not apologize for it. That's recovery. Not just from addiction, but recovery from hiding, from pretending, recovering from performing a version of yourself that doesn't match what's happening inside. So maybe tonight your inventory isn't about good or bad, not about fault or blame. Maybe it's simply, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm lonely. I'm overwhelmed. I'm hopeful, but I don't trust it yet. And that's enough. You don't have to fix everything in one sitting. You don't have to reorganize the whole pantry tonight. Just write the labels clearly so you can finally see what's truly there. Because clarity, not perfection, is what freedom is made of. The Blue Book says that before we're halfway through, we'll know a new freedom and a new happiness. And I think that freedom begins the moment you stop hiding from your own heart. You flip on the light and you take a breath and you whisper, "This is what's here." Not with fear, not with shame, but with acceptance. The "I'm here with you" kind of acceptance. Somehow that's already enough. The truth doesn't set you free because it fixes the problem. It sets you free because you end pretending. Lets you walk through your inner world with the lights on. You deserve that kind of clarity. You deserved it the whole time. Let's close today with a moment of stillness. A moment that belongs only to you. Not your to-do list, not your responsibilities, not the world tugging on your sleeve, just you. If you're able to right now, I want you to gently place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Feel the warmth of your own palms. Feel the rise and fall beneath your hands. Feel your own aliveness, the quiet pulse of being a human in this strange and mixed up world. Now take one slow breath in. Let it fill your chest, your ribs, your belly, like soft light expanding inside you. And then breathe out, just a little longer than you breathed in. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw loosen. Let the body melt the way it knows how to when you give it permission. Then I want you to do it again. In slow and steady. Out longer and softer. Your breath is your anchor. It's always available. It's always honest. Now, either out loud or quietly in your mind, say the words, "This is what's here." And let that sentence land in you like a soft blanket. It's not judgment. It's not pressure. It's just recognition. Whatever emotion is sitting with you right now, name it gently. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to justify why it's there or explain how long it plans to stay. You just have to greet it the way you'd greet a familiar visitor at your door. Hello, sadness. Hello, anger. Hope, overwhelm, confusion, tenderness. Hello. Now let it sit beside you. Let it take the chair next to you. And when you take that next slow breath in, just tell yourself, "I'm allowed to feel this." Well, all right, my lovely human beings, that's a wrap for today. I'm Mira Crowe, your host, your storyteller, and your proud emotional support GenX auntie, the one who'll give you the truth, a snack, and a ride home without telling your mama. All the music you heard today was created by my son, John Henry, who likes to pretend he's not a musical genius, but I know better. And look, I'm not a doctor, a therapist, clinician, surgeon, wizard, or licensed dealer of enlightenment. I'm just a Southern woman with a psychology degree and a lifetime of plot twists, sharing what I've learned the hard way. Take what helps, leave what doesn't, and please don't sue me. If you want more, head to humanbeangsradio.com, and if you want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/humanbeangsradio, or buy me several if you want this garden to stay hydrated. I love y'all. Be decent to yourself.